Hare welcome everybody to this morning's class on Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'll just begin with an auspicious invocation. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So this morning we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th Canto, Chapter 16, titled Lord Parashurama Destroys the Ruling Class. And today we're beginning with text 20, and we'll be going until text 23, where there's a purport or commentary by our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so please go ahead and repeat after me. Pitukayena sandhaya,
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Shira adaya barhishi,
Shira adaya varishi,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Atmanamaya janmakai,
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Shira adaya barhishi,
Shira adaya varishi,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Atmanamaya janmakai,
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Shira adaya barhishi,
Shira adaya varishi,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Atmanamaya janmakai,
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Shira adaya barhisi,
Shira adaya varishi,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Pitukayena sandhaya,
Shira adaya varishi,
Shira adaya varishi,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Sarvadeva mayam devam,
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Atmanamaya janmakai.
Mataji's.
Pitukayena sandhaya, Shira adaya varishi, Sarvadeva mayam devam, Atmanamaya janmakai. Pitukayena sandhaya, Shira adaya varishi, Sarvadeva mayam devam, Atmanamaya janmakai.
Okay, we'll go ahead and read the word-for-word translation of the verse. Pituhu,
Pituhu,
of his father,
of his father,
Kayena,
Kayena,
with the body,
with the body,
Sandhaya,
Sandhaya,
joining,
joining,
Shiraha,
Shira,
the head,
the head,
Adaya,
Adaya,
keeping,
keeping,
Barhishi,
Varhishi,
upon Kusha grass,
upon Kusha grass,
Sarvadeva Mayam,
Sarvadeva Mayam,
the all-pervading,
the all-pervading,
Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Master of all the demigods,
the Master of all the demigods,
Devam,
Devam,
Lord Vasudeva,
Lord Vasudeva,
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
who is present everywhere,
who is present everywhere,
as the Super Soul,
as the Super Soul,
Ayajat,
Ayajat,
he worshipped,
he worshipped,
Makai,
Makai,
by offering sacrifice.
by offering sacrifices.
Translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Thereafter, Parashurama joined his father's head to the dead body and placed the whole body and head upon Kusha grass. By offering sacrifices, he began to worship Lord Vasudeva, who is the all-pervading super soul of all the demigods and of every living entity. And now I'll go ahead and read the next few verses and translations. Dado prachin disham hotre brahmane dakshinan disham advaryave prati chinvai udgatre uttaram disham anyebhyo vantara disha kashyapaya cha madhyataha aryavartam upadrashtre sadasyebhyastatah param. After completing the sacrifice, Lord Parashurama gave the eastern direction to the Hota as a gift, the south to the Brahma, the west to the Advaryu, the north to the Udgata, and the four corners, northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest, to the other priests. He gave the middle to Kashyapa, and the place known as Aryavarta to the Upadrashta. Whatever remained, he distributed among the Sadasyas, the associate priests. Here's a small purport by Srila Prabhupada. The tract of land in India, between the Himalaya mountains and the Vindhya hills, is called Aryavarta. Next verse. Tataschava brita snana vidhutashe sakil dishaha sarasvatyam mahanadyam reje vyabhra ipam shuman. Thereafter, having completed the ritualistic sacrificial ceremonies, Lord Parashurama took the bath known as the Avabhrita Snana. Standing on the bank of the great river Saraswati, cleared of all sins, Lord Parashurama appeared like the sun in a clear, cloudless sky. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Yagyartat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Karma bandhanaha refers to the repeated acceptance of one material body after another. The whole problem of life is this repetition of birth and death. Therefore, one is advised to work, to perform yajna meant for satisfying Lord Vishnu. Although Lord Parashurama was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he had to account for sinful activities. Anyone in this material world, however careful he may be, must commit some sinful activities, even though he does not want to. For example, one may trample many small ants and other insects while walking on the street, and kill many living beings unknowingly. Therefore, the Vedic principle of Pancha Yajna, 5 kinds of recommended sacrifice, is compulsory. In this age of Kali, however, there is a great concession given to people in general. Yagyai sankirtanaprayai yajantihi sumevasaha. We may worship Lord Chaitanya, the hidden incarnation of Krishna. Krishna Varnam Krishna Krishna. Although he is Krishna himself, he always chants Hare Krishna and preaches Krishna consciousness. One is recommended to worship this incarnation by chanting the Sankirtan Yajna. The performance of Sankirtan Yajna is a special concession for human society to save people from being affected by known or unknown sinful activities. We are surrounded by unlimited sins, and therefore it is compulsory that one take the Krishna consciousness and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. I'll go ahead and say a few prayers before beginning. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sorry, I can't remember them when I'm on the spot. I have to read them. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Salitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Navita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gauramgi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhandu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarupasya Kripa Sindhu Yarevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Rasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So we're going through a very interesting pastime or description of the activities of either the Lord or his devotees. They're called pastimes or lila. And in this pastime, one of the incarnations of Krishna, named Parashurama, is he's in the midst of fulfilling one of the purposes of Krishna that he fulfills when he appears, overburdened by persons who who are of a corrupt mentality, who are exploiting people and performing what we call sinful acts, then Krishna says, whenever such persons become prominent on the planet, then I descend as an avatar. I descend to curb their activities and to rescue the pious persons or devotees from the influence of such people. So in this pastime, we're in the midst of a period where the ruling class, generally referred to as the Kshatriyas. Kshatriya means, the word kshat means harm, and triya means to deliver. So the purpose of a Kshatriya is to protect people from harm, or to deliver people from harm. And so this is actually the purpose of being in a governing position, being in a position of power, administrative power, military power, political power. The intended use for that power is actually just to protect the people. And in order to be maintained while performing that duty, one is allowed to exact taxes from the people. But those taxes also are meant to be invested in a way that they're returned to the people through the benefit of that protection. It's compared in the same way that the sun takes water from the ocean, and that water, which is evaporated from the ocean and from the lakes and rivers, it forms clouds. And then over time, as those clouds grow, then eventually they pour the water down on the land and on the crops that people are growing, and then people benefit from those rains. So similarly, a good ruling government is meant to be like such a cloud, that they're meant to take water from the earth only to return it back in a way that's beneficial for everybody. And what had happened in this period of time is that the ruling class had become corrupt, and they were taking advantage of their position, and they were exploiting the vulnerable masses for their enjoyment. And one of the examples that was given here that actually sparked this whole event is that there was one sage who had a very special possession, a possession called the Kamadhenu, a wish-fulfilling cow that could basically provide anything that one wanted. If you wanted a gold amulet, or if you wanted, a gigantic strawberry cheesecake, whatever you might have wanted, you could just go to this cow, and this cow would give that to you. But this cow was the rightful property of this sage. And the kingly order had become so corrupt that when the king saw this, he just simply went in and plundered the cow and took it, and he had no consideration of the rights of the sage, and this became the beginning of a chain that revealed the corruption of the Kshatriyas at the time. And then, in retaliation for this, Parashurama, he took the head of that king and returned the Kamadhenu cow to his father. But the sons of that king, they were just as corrupted by greed and lust and envy and anger as their father was. And so they wanted revenge. and they knew they could not defeat Parashurama. So when Parashurama was away from his father's dwelling one day, and his father was in a vulnerable position because he was just in the middle of performing one sacrificial ceremony. They took advantage of his vulnerable state, and they came and cut his head off. And this triggered Parashurama to go to that capital city and basically just wipe out all of those corrupt kshatriyas, corrupt rulers, removing their heads. And although it appeared externally he was doing this as an act of vengeance for what they had committed against his father in murdering him, actually it was just what's the word? Basically, he just took advantage of that situation to give him the occasion to fulfill his real purpose, which, as we stated, that when Krishna descends to this world, he annihilates miscreants. Miscreant is somebody who's acting in a corrupt way against the natural laws of the Lord. So in this, so after having performed this action, Lord Parashurama, although he was an incarnation of God, he performed a ceremony, he performed a yajna, or a sacrifice, to rid himself of the sins that he would have accrued from carrying out this activity. And he did this not because he actually needed to, but he did this to show us the example that in human society there's a great need to perform sacrifice, because inevitably we, even if we desire to be good and not commit any kinds of sins, it's inevitable that we commit some. Prabhupada gives the example of we may even accidentally trample on some small ants as we're walking along here and there. And especially if we're outside working in the garden, it's inevitable that we overturn the homes of various kinds of bugs and worms and cause them anxiety, cause them some harm, or maybe even kill them. But of course it's a necessary activity to grow food. So then what to do about it? Then there's a system of performing sacrifice to please the Lord. And Prabhupada points out in this purport the principle of yajna. And he says that, he quotes Bhagavad Gita, which says, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, as a sacrifice for God, has to be performed, because otherwise such work binds one to this material world. And this being bound to the material world means taking one birth after another, means remaining in this cycle of birth and death. When at the beginning of life, a living entity enters into the embryo in the womb of a mother, and when that living entity comes out of the mother's womb, that's considered birth. And then over time, that body will gradually age, get older, and will encounter various kinds of diseases. And then finally the end of the cycle is that the living conditions of the body eventually become unbearable for the soul, or the Atma, residing within. And then the Atma leaves the body, and the body is no longer active, and that's a process that's called death. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it's pointed out that actually these four things, birth, disease, old age, and death, these are the four problems of material existence. These are the four problems of life. We may look at the world and see so many problems. We might see that in some parts of the world there's a shortage of food, or maybe there's an upcoming shortage of petrol, or this resource or that resource, or maybe there's a lack of education about nutrition, or a lack of education about this or that. But we learn from Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita that actually the root of all problems is that the soul is stuck in this cycle of birth, disease, old age, and death. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanu darshanam. He says that somebody who's intelligent will see that these four faults, which are inherent in material existence and which none of us can avoid, they basically spoil everything that we're trying to do or accomplish or trying to achieve in the material world. And that no matter how much we may seem to succeed in perhaps business or in family life or friendships and relationships or fulfilling certain dreams, like perhaps traveling to see the world, or starting a business from scratch and it being successful, or raising one's children, having a loving relationship with one's spouse and family members. No matter how much we may succeed in these endeavors, ultimately these four elements of birth, disease, old age, and death, they will prevent us from finding any true satisfaction. And it can be compared to, maybe I'll take the example of a smoothie. I've been having lots of smoothies lately. Does anybody like smoothies? Yes, is it appreciated food item? So let's say that you're making a smoothie and you've just put in all the favorite ingredients that you like, depending on who you are. It might be bananas, dates, pears, could be almonds, could be coconut flakes, cocoa powder, carob powder, you can avocado, and it's just the kind of smoothie that you like, and you blend it up and it looks very beautiful and it smells very nice. And then just at the very final stage of the process, if somehow by accident a few grains of sand got into the blender, just like maybe a little teaspoon or even half a teaspoon, a few grains of sand got into the blender and blended it up, and then you tried to drink that smoothie, which is just the flavor that you like, just the texture that you like. But what you would find is, if you've ever been to the beach, inevitably you get some sand in your mouth and it gets in between your teeth and it's like, and even like a day after, for the next day or two, you've got that sand in your teeth trying to get it out. Well, if there was just a little bit of sand put into that smoothie and mixed in, then no matter how hard you tried to really appreciate it and relish that smoothie, it would just spoil the whole experience. You wouldn't be able to ignore it, even if you wanted to deny, no, this smoothie is very nice, but in the back of your mind, you'll know it's like, you'll be bothered. So, Srila Prabhupada gave a different example. He used the example of sweet rice. I don't know if everybody here has had sweet rice yet, but the principle is the same. He said that if you have some very nice sweet rice, and then you put just a little bit of sand in it, it spoils the whole thing. So, if we, according to Krishna, if we're intelligent, we'll look at this world and see that, no matter what I accomplish, if I'm unable to get free from disease, from old age, from death, and if I'm unable to get free from rebirth, which causes me to repeat those same processes, then I'll never be happy. So this is the direction we're being urged in. And therefore, we're being urged to engage in yajna, which means sacrifice. And sacrifice meant for pleasing God. And Krishna, our God, is inherently present in such sacrifice. And by performing such sacrifice, we can become free from any sins we might commit on a day-to-day activity. And ultimately, what sin really means is to keep oneself bound in the material world, going through the cycle of birth and death. And what is the purpose for which we're going through that process again and again? The Bhagavad Gita says that living entities have come to this material world with the intention of trying to enjoy it, trying to take control over matter and exploit it for our own enjoyment in various kinds of ways. And this lifestyle is actually completely against our real constitutional nature. Our original nature is described as Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. That our nature is to be a servant of God. Our nature is to serve Krishna, and Krishna includes also serving those who are Krishna's loved ones, and ultimately all living entities are loved by Krishna. And so we serve Krishna, we serve Krishna's dear ones, his devotees, and we serve all living entities, no matter what condition they're in a spirit of compassion. And this is our nature. Our real nature is to engage our serving propensities in selfless service. Service not meant for my own satisfaction, the satisfaction of my tongue, the satisfaction of my eyes, the satisfaction of my ears, the satisfaction of my skin, but to engage my natural propensity to serve and to seek happiness by seeking the happiness of others and serving them, and by seeking the happiness of Krishna or God and serving him. And so by this process of yajna, we can reconnect with Krishna, reconnect with our original service nature, and in this purport, Prabhupada is reminding us of what the best kind of yajna, what the most effective and purifying and essential form of yajna is that we can perform. He says it is this Sankirtan yajna. So kirtan means to sing the names of God or chant the names of God, to describe God's activities. And the prefix san means to do that together, that everybody comes together, and that makes it complete. So Sankirtan means complete kirtan. And that kirtan becomes complete when we join together to chant, just as Lord Chaitanya gave the example of doing when he appeared on this earth. Krishna appeared in a form called Lord Chaitanya, just to fulfill this mission of showing us how to perform this sacrifice of using our tongues to vibrate Krishna's names, to vibrate God's names. And this is actually a really universal process. Practically every great religion or great spiritual tradition on the face of the earth has this practice of chanting God's names in one way or another. And it doesn't matter so much which particular name of God one chants, whether it's Krishna or Jehovah or Allah. there are many bona fide names of God, and they all have the same absolute potency of connecting one directly with God. And so Lord Chaitanya taught us the chanting of Hare Krishna, and he always taught others the chanting of Hare Krishna. He came to make this process available to all. And the non-sectarian nature of sacrifice for Krishna, or sacrifice for God, one indications of that from the Bhagavad Gita is that Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between God himself and one of his devotees. It's a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And it took place just on the verge of when a battle was about to begin. And the commander, who was Arjuna was the general of his side, his army, and he was, in a moment of weakness, he was doubting whether he should perform his duty or not as a warrior. And so he asked Krishna, who had agreed to become his chariot driver, to drive him in between the two armies so that he could observe who was on the other side. And it is actually here between two opposing sides, between two opposing armies, that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. And actually by doing so, he was making a statement that the message that I'm giving is not meant for any one particular class of people, but not for another. It's not meant for one particular religion, but not for the other religions. It's not meant for the people of one particular nation, but not for the people of the other nations. He spoke it right in the middle of the two armies where both sides could hear. And of course he could have said, okay, hold on there, General, I'll enlighten you, but first let's go back to our side so that these other guys, they don't hear, we don't want them to benefit from this. And generally that is the mentality, that if I'm the head of one nation and I'm at war with another nation, then whatever information, valuable information that I have, I want to keep it for myself. I don't want my enemy to find it out. Or if I have some treasure, I'm not going to say, oh, let me share this treasure with my enemy. So Krishna was demonstrating the universal nature of the knowledge that we find in the Vedas and in the Bhagavad Gita by speaking it in the middle of the battlefield where all could hear, both sides. So, yeah, there we go. So I think that's all I have to say on these verses. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Or Bruno?
You talk about the fact that here in this material world we are all subject to the birth, disease, old age and death.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one devotee who said to me that when we are Krishna conscious, in fact everything is smoothie, because when we born, we begin to appreciate the light, the colors, the touch of the mother, the five senses begin to sprout, and usually child are very pleased to be here. And after that, the child begin to use these senses. He begin to connect with people when he grow older a little bit, and he appreciates also. And after he begin to teach the young one when he's 40 years old, 30 years old, you know. So you can appreciate, and after when you get old, you begin to do the senses begin to get émoussé, comment on peut dire, less efficient. And so because he's Krishna conscious, he can practice internal bhajan. So it's not a problem for him to get old and to have no eyes, no touch, no more mouth. So all the process of bhakti, all the life can be, in fact, sweet when you are Krishna conscious. So it's once one explanation when we learn that devotees are aloof from this material world. Because of that also.
Thank you. Hin?
You spoke about the four suffering of life, which are birth, old disease, old age, and death. What is the connection or the difference between these four sufferings and the other three kinds of suffering that are caused by ourselves, by others, and by
Devatas.
disasters? Is there any connection?
Yeah, they're essentially they're just kind of different ways to analyze it, different ways to dissect it. We often hear about the threefold miseries in the scriptures, being suffering or miseries caused by one's own body and mind, suffering caused by other living entities, and suffering caused by natural conditions like weather, climate, etc. like this. So ultimately the source of all suffering is the material body, that we've acquired this material body, and it's suffering through birth, disease, old age, and death. It's suffering through contact with other living entities, because the nature of this world is that the resources are limited, and we come here for the sake of being the center, putting ourselves in the center and trying to arrange all the resources of this world around our own desires. And problem with that is that everybody else here is trying to do the same thing, and so there's competition, and so that's a source of suffering, and yeah. Maybe I can't really give like a very comprehensive answer to that, but I just kind of see it as like two different angles of vision, different ways to analyze it. Okay, so it's about 9 o'clock, so go ahead and end the class. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Great Shantatma Prabhu ki
Not Shantatma.